Hi there, welcome to the Absolutely Right podcast, India's first graphology based leadership show. My name is Aditi Surana. I'm a behavioral analyst, a high performance coach, and an anti anxiety expert. If you're new to this podcast, if you're new to this platform, you might not be aware of it. We are on the 10th part of our 10-part graphology series, which means last 9 Friday episodes, I've been teaching you different aspects of handwriting, signature, and the behavioral traits it talks about. It's fascinating to see how these minute things like baseline or pressure of your writing or even signature or encircling in your signature can reveal so much of information. So if you haven't heard them, then after you're done listening to this one, go back, listen to all 9 of them. There is no specific sequence. Whatever you like, you can pick up and start from there. Now, when I look at the handwriting sample every single time, the most interesting part for me is to see how the story is woven. When you're watching a movie, a character is revealed by each action, by each dialogue, by his body language. Here, when I look at somebody's handwriting sample, I also get to see this character in the story that, or the protagonist who is sitting in front of me, his character is revealed to me by the strokes that I observe and the story that he tells me and the way I could weave the whole experience to see the layer which is otherwise invisible to other people, right? So that is like the most fascinating part. Today I'm going to share a real-time story with you where as I looked at someone's handwriting, their story became alive. It came alive for me to look at different aspects of his personality to be able to see how he sees that situation, not in a generic term, but how he looks at that problem, and to be able to understand that was such a powerful space because I could give the solution required. So let me get to today's story and tell you how that one simple conversation of 30 minutes resolved a conflict for a person that he was carrying around for more than 30 years. Let's get there. Something fascinating about the characters in the movie and actual personality, which I find, fascinatingly similar, is a character is woven by a director's or writer's imagination. You think, I think this hero of the movie should have a lot more aggression here, and then they add a bit more aggression and add a scene or two. Then they think, no, I think the heroine of the movie can actually have that little variation in her reaction because she's also a sensitive person, and they weave or tweak the scenario or the scenes in a way that you start thinking about the actress being this slightly sensitive person. Similarly, our personalities are also woven. We don't realize it, but that's the truth. We actually keep looking at the situation not for what they are, but who we are, how we look at life, how we think about the problem or, any situation for that matter. And that pattern is fascinating, consistent, and also enslaving. We keep reliving the same pattern in any situation that we go. So a short-tempered person talking to his mother, talking to the person on the road, talking to a stranger or a boss or a colleague will always carry the short-tempered predictable behavior because that's how he or she thinks, and that becomes the filter through which they look at the world. The very moment you realize that you're looking at the world through that filter, it becomes easier for you to cut through that filter, and that is the power of all these aspects of personality. Now, coming to the story, the experience, I'm not going to reveal any personal details here, just going to tell you what happened and how graphology connected all the dots here. So a friend of mine called me, I think 5-6 years ago, and he said, I would like you to talk to my father professionally. And I'm like, okay. That's what you think is helpful. He said, yeah, because there is a situation. My parents have been going through the separation for many, many years, and they have reached a point legally where they got to move forward. They got to take the next leap, and it is kind of conflicted at this point in time. I said, okay, why not? Let me just see what I can do. When his father came to my office and he had met me socially, so he knew me, but also it's awkward when you know somebody like that. So he was taking time, he's figuring it out, he didn't know what he was doing there. So I took a moment, and as you might have seen on our Wednesday episode, I talk about generic aspects of somebody's personality through handwriting to just make sure that they're comfortable with the whole conversation. And that's what I did. I tried my level best to get him to feel at ease. And when I felt he was ready to talk, I asked him directly. I said, Uncle, if you're willing, if you're comfortable, we can talk about the concern at hand, and I think I can help. And he thought for a moment. He was not really sure, and he said, okay. So he said, it's difficult for me to talk about the things, like I have hardly spoken to anybody, and every time I try to speak, it just becomes all the old memories come back. Now, cut to, let's look at his handwriting sample here. Now, he was showing something called a left slant in his writing. Anybody with a left slant won't be able to emote and talk about his emotions easily. They take a lot of time to trust people around them. And if they feel that people kind of broke their trust, especially in close relationships, then they cannot open up whatsoever. At the same time, he had a trait in the writing called an argumentative letter P. Now, the letter is not argumentative, but there is an extension, like an antenna on top of the letter P that you may see, which goes like 3 to 4, or sometimes 6 millimeters, which is like a huge extension for a normal writer. That talks about somebody who cannot give up on his point of view. Now, if there is a split in the letter P with that antenna, that also makes the person extremely stubborn. Now, Uncle had both of them. He had that antenna, and he had the split, that gap at the top portion of letter P, lowercase letter P. And that made me realize that definitely from the time this person has picked up this argument with his ex-wife, he cannot let it go. Now, just imagine if you cannot let go of an argument, at the same time you cannot talk about it. That means all that frustration, all that anger is within, is absolutely ticking like a bomb. And I decided to just listen to him. I decided to give him space and become an absolute platform for him to hear his own thoughts out. Because otherwise, if I would have tried saying anything, he would have looked at it as me defending, someone else's point of view, or me having an agenda, and he would have argued with me. Now, that clue in the writing actually gave me the insight that I should just create a platform to listen to him. The third aspect that I saw in his writing was his wavy baseline. Now, baseline is that imaginary line on which you write. That line that you cannot see but exists when you decide to write a paragraph, for that matter. In his case, it was going up and down. That means the person is absolutely confused about the future, absolutely confused about how he feels. Now, just connecting these 3 dots was really powerful, though there were so many other things available there. But these 3 things stood out because someone who was absolutely not open to have a conversation and has this argumentative thinking process, on top of that is absolutely confused, may look like somebody who doesn't know what he's walking into. And he kept on doing things spitefully without understanding how it was affecting the entire family. Now, in the 30 minutes that we spoke, I just backed off and allowed him to speak. And as he started hearing himself, he just went on and on describing things that were unjust and absolutely unacceptable according to him, and how that happened 20 years ago, and how something else happened 10 years ago. And he just kept talking. And after 25 minutes into the conversation, he paused, he thought about the situation, and he decided to sign the paper and close the matter, literally. And when he announced that to me, I was shocked, I was confused, I didn't understand what exactly happened. But that is a power of how people look at things and how they understand themselves. When he heard these things coming out of his own mouth for the first time, and when there was no defense, there was no fight in front of him, and somebody was absolutely accepting his side of the story, the need to defend that point of view, the need to defend his view just collapsed. And he found his answer. And within, I think, a month or so, the legal matter was resolved. Now, that's what happens to people. We all are unable to see who we are because we are so busy and caught up in our own stories. We absolutely do not understand there could be another perspective to see the same thing. And when you're protecting something, defending something, making sure that it does not burst out and that bomb that is ticking in your heart does not go off, all your attention is on holding on to those stories, those perspectives, those opinions. The very moment the need goes away, the story goes away. And I think that is absolutely powerful. So, on that note, you learned 3 new things about graphology if you're a new listener. The writing that goes to the left or backwards, talking about introversion. The letter P with an antenna or extension on the top talks about argumentative behavior. And the third thing, if the line, the bass line goes up and down, wavy bass line, it talks about confusion in the writing. I intend to do more stories like these. So if you like this conversation, if you think this was interesting, and Aditi, you must continue telling us more stories. That's what our Graphology Masterclass students always tell me to do. Then please write to me. My email ID is write@aditisurana.com. If you want to keep in touch and also see how I'm connecting Bollywood or movies with psychological situations and different perspectives and tools to deal with that, you can check out the Instagram handle. It's Aditi Surana, or you can check it as Misunderstanding. Not misunderstanding, as Miss, like Miss Braganza, like misunderstanding. Check that out. Lastly, if you want to be a part of our mental fitness movement by joining India's first mental and emotional gym called APT, you can check out the website aptforme.com. APT, A for Aspire, P for Perform, T for Transform. aptforme.com is the website. You can get all the required information there. I'll see you on Wednesday with one more episode, with one more guest of the Absolutely Right podcast. Till then, happy writing.